Sure.
auditing is being like illustrated or presented. So I just want to thank you for clarifying things. At least now I have clarity, and it's really important to know because really working is is a serious matter, and every penny is really important. We should
Yeah.
have a knowledge where it goes. We
Yeah.
should have
Yeah.
a fair chance of knowing where do
Sure.
these
Absolutely.
funds go to. So these are the things that
Absolutely.
I appreciate.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you.
because of this workshop, I had the
Yeah.
knowledge. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. Thank you. So sis, at the end of the day, thank you again for bringing this up. You reminded me of something. So at the end of the day, um, the the Book of Acts model, I believe, when COVID hit the world, it was, I believe, COVID did not take God by surprise. Let's be clear about that. COVID took the churches globally by surprise, but COVID did not take God by surprise. I think we can all agree on that. So the question then is, why did the Lord allow COVID? I would like to believe there were many things that happened during COVID, and one of the things was the Lord was calling His bride. The Lord was calling the global church back to the way things were in the beginning. Again, and I have the scriptures here about how you see, especially in the book of Acts, and for largely the first 400 years of church history, churches were meeting house to house, and so I feel like God was God didn't just want to be in the church building, He wanted His presence to be revered in homes. Because what happens most of the time when people are playing churches, they put on the mask and they come and they play church on a Sunday, and then the rest of the week, it's like you go to the homes of most Christians, it's like an unbeliever's home. you know it's like people are just pretending to be believers on the Sunday, but the rest of the week, ignoring Jesus for the rest of the week, and so unless then there's some crisis or emergency, and then everyone starts praying. I think God wanted to invade every home, and He wanted to invite every leader, every minister, to rethink church in the context of home, where the home is the main thing and not the church building itself. And so again, I just as I spoke earlier, again, if you look at where persecution is happening globally in many countries across the world, people don't even have the opportunity or the freedom to gather in a building. I have a dear friend who's moved to a country in the Middle East where there are no churches. There no church buildings are allowed. It's only house to house that people are gathering, right? So what's happened with the Western model of church? What's happened with the church, especially over the last few centuries, is that everyone thinks that it's if you're not coming to a large building, it's not really church, which is wrong. That's not how the early church gathered, and that's not how the Christian believers in many countries and in many parts of the world are actually gathering and having a church community. The beauty about home is that there is more genuineness, there is more intimacy. Otherwise, in a large crowd, you're just lost. There is no genuine community, especially in a large building, in a large crowd. And so, as I said, spoke myself, I got saved in a mega church, and for 10 years, I went to this mega church 4 days a week. I was serving actively, but my phone never rang. Right, I was very active in ministry, and my only communication was with people was around, oh, this has to be done, this has to be done in church, that has to be done, whether it's in the area of worship leading, or newcomers, or newly baptized and all of that. All communication was about works, but there wasn't really intimate relationship with anyone. No one knew what was going on in my life. I didn't know what was going on in anyone else's life. It was all about the work that needed to be done. And so, as I've said in previous calls as well, another tragedy that happened again in my first decade of Christian life is that a lot of the focus was on serve the Lord, serve the Lord, serve the Lord. But there wasn't much focus on being a child of God and being a son, right? The mindset was, hey, servant of the Lord, servant, we all have to serve. And so, serve where? House of the Lord, right? not realizing that majority of the believers are spending most of their time outside the church building, not in the church building. So what does serving the Lord look like outside the church building, where we are spending 60% of our waking hours in the marketplace? What does serving the Lord look like there? There wasn't much focus or wasn't much equipping and empowering in that context, because the mindset was serve the Lord, build the house of the Lord, which is the physical building. But the house of the Lord is not just a physical building, it's not a physical building, it's people. People make up the house of the Lord. So if you're not building people, you're not really building church, right? So that was a huge mindset shift that I had to go through myself. And so my point is that whether you talk about church history or even if you're talking about today, how the church is functioning and gathering in many countries where there's persecution, it's not like in a lavish building with with pews or with chairs or so on with a cross at the top and a steeple. That's not how most churches are meeting and gathering today in persecuted nations. The church in persecuted nations today resembles the book of Acts more, where they're meeting house to house. Spoke about COVID and the impact of COVID on churches and poverty and so on. We spoke about how people are, believers are ignorant about the scriptures on the subject of money and finances, where there are more than 2,000 verses on the subject, right? And then we also spoke about how, just like there are 2,000 verses on the subject of money and finances, there and financial stewardship, there are also 2,000 plus verses on protecting the poor, the widow, the orphan, the oppressed. Now, as we just spoke about a few moments ago, when you look at the church budgeting, the church budget does not reflect the scriptures that talk about those 2,000, that has more than 2,000 plus verses about protecting the widow and the orphan and the um and the oppressed and the poor, right? If the 2,000 plus scriptures were actually influencing church budgets, this pie graph would look very, very different. The Great Commission would not be an issue, right? But what's happening is, since most of the church budgets are going towards salaries and wages and buildings, as a result of that, people are not really getting help. Nations are not changing. Communities are not being transformed. The poor are not getting the help they need. And what's happening? The devil is working. The devil is ransacking and plundering entire communities. You have the powers of darkness, whether that is through drug trafficking, human trafficking, sex trafficking, all sorts of things happening, exploitation of labor, brutal exploitation of labor. It's all happening on the church's watch. And guess what? We can't blame God, because he's done his part. He's done his part. We can't blame the government, because again, the government is not following God, but it's the church. If the global church gets her act together, if the global church stewards finances together better, and if every believer, that includes you and I, if we steward our finances better, in line with what scriptures highlight and emphasize, the world will look different. The neighborhoods would look different. You know, and so I want to just lay that here, that if we really revere the presence of Jesus, um, and we also revere what he says, right? And you know, why is this important? And I think I need to lay something here, because I met a lot of friends who spend a lot of hours in worship and prayer, but they don't spend hours with actually knowing what is it that the Lord desires, right? What is it? What is really heavy on the Lord's heart? What does the Lord's heart break for? And so, um, when I talk to people, uh, and I talk to friends about, even this whole subject of worship and prayer, it's so important for us to think about a marriage, right? So, for example, my wife and I, my wife can sing love songs to me. She can sing songs to me, songs of love from, movies, or some secular lovely love songs she can sing to me. It means nothing to me if she doesn't value what I have to say. In the same way, as a bride of Christ, I think sometimes we are guilty of this. We are sing all love songs to Jesus, but we don't value what he has said. And so true worship actually places value on what he said, which is why you have the Mary Martha situation, right? Where the Lord is telling Martha, 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 you're worried about so many things. You're worried about serving and all of these things. Very few things are necessary. And I believe that's what the Lord was telling us through COVID. Through COVID, what God was telling church leaders all over the world is, guys, you're worried about my sons and daughters. Hold on. Time out. Time out. Pause. You're worried about so many things. Only few things are necessary. Very few things are necessary. Not the lavish buildings and programs and all of that. Few things are necessary. Focus on the important things. And I love the fact that COVID woke up many leaders to strip apart everything that was unnecessary and focus on what is necessary. And it's still a debate right now what those necessary things are, right? And that's why we are doing these series, right? To get to the bottom of what really is necessary, right? And so, as if you are following the shepherd and not the herd, if you are following him, feeding on what he said, following his directions, then that will influence every area of our lives, including our finances as well. And so, as we are seeking knowledge, as we are seeking Him, as we're seeking understanding, the Lord is going to make things clearer to us. He's going to make crooked places straight. Our decision making will have more clarity. We will be at rest and peace. We will not be making decisions from a place of fear or stress or anxiety. We will not be trying to be a Superman or something. No, we will be in rest. We'll be like children who are just receiving from a good father. We be like children trusting a good father. I have a 5-year old. All right, he's not worrying about how the bills are going to be paid because he's trusting in his father. He's trusting in his mother. He's trusting in his parents. He's just resting in the love of his parents. And so I feel like when Jesus said, "Be like little children," He's also asking us, inviting us to be like little children, just resting and trusting Him as a good Father, trusting that He's taking care of every bill, trusting that He will provide. And we don't have to have it all figured out. As long as we're doing our part of pursuing Him, and as long as we're doing our part of seeking Him and seeking to learn like children, seeking to understand like children, as long as we're doing that part, the other things will take care of themselves. As we are pursuing His presence, as we are pursuing Him and inviting Him, Lord, please, if I'm going wrong anywhere, deal with me. As David prayed, search me, O God, and see if there's anything wicked in me. Deal with me, O Lord. Deal with my heart, O God. Deal with me. Deal with me. Come and have your way. You have permission to do as you please. We give you permission. I love that. I mean, I work for a hospital, and I've gone through a surgery myself on myself. And something that doctors do is they make you sign consent forms, right? To consent, they need your consent to perform a surgery. And it's even true, you see that in scriptures as well, right? Jesus never touched anyone without, first asking for their permission. They came to him, and he often asked me, he often asked them, "Do you want to be well? What is it do you want me to do for you? What do you want me to do for you?" He often asked people, even the blind person. It's obvious a person is blind, but he would ask them, like, "What would you like me to do for you? What do you want me to do for you?" Right? He wanted them to say it and give him a consent and permission to touch their lives. And so it's the kindness of God, the beauty of the Father. He will not invade our lives unless we give him permission to do so. We come to him and we are like children, and like little children, asking him to invade our dreams, to give us visions, to give us clarity, prophetic confirmations, confirming his word with signs and wonders. So um yeah, I just want to leave that there. If anyone else has any other feedback about the session today, any other thoughts about the session today, please feel free to share. I just want to end with a short time of prayer as well. I just want to give you a few seconds to unmute yourself and share your feedback before we move into a quick time of prayer.